Second day of General Debate of the United Nations General Assembly 80th session continues this Wednesday. In Venezuela, the National Council for Sovereignty and Peace, Miranda chapter, was installed as part of the efforts of the Venezuelan state to strengthen the security and integral defense of the country. And in the last 24 hours, the Israeli army killed more than 30 Palestinians during its attacks. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly continues on its second day of general debate this Wednesday as world leaders focus their speeches on peace efforts, development and human rights. Among the core themes of the speeches are threats to international peace and the need for cooperation in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. For these, each representative will present their perspectives on global challenges, particularly the need for international cooperation to uphold the principles of the United Nations Charter. In this framework and ahead of COP30, a climate summit will be held to propose ideas to drive actions in critical areas of climate issues. In this context, the President of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, condemned the Israeli aggressions against Middle Eastern countries, denouncing the attacks on Iranian territories and the ceasefire negotiation committee in Qatar.
The aerial assaults of the Zionist regime against Iran's cities, homes and infrastructures precisely at a time when we were treading the path of diplomatic negotiations constituted a grave betrayal of diplomacy and a subversion of efforts towards the establishment of stability and peace. Finally, Iran condemns the criminal aggression of the Israeli regime against Qatar, which resulted in the martyrdom of a number of Palestinian and Qatari nationals, and declares its support and solidarity with the government and people of Qatar. Ladies and gentlemen, true security is not achieved through force, but through confidence building, mutual respect, regional convergence, and multilateralism grounded in international laws.
Moreover, the Iranian head of state defended his country's right to nuclear development for peaceful purposes, stressing the nation does not seek to build nuclear weapons.
I hereby declare once more before this assembly that Iran has never sought and will never seek to build a nuclear bomb. We do not seek nuclear weapons. This is our belief based on the edict issued by the supreme leader and by religious authorities. Therefore, we never sought weapons of mass destruction, nor will we ever seek them. Whereas those who disturb the peace and stability in the region lies in Israel, but Iran is the one that is being punished for those actions.
For his part, King Felipe VI of Spain demanded that the Israeli government find a solution to the conflict with Palestine. The monarch emphasized that the violence in Gaza constitutes a flagrant violation of the principles of the United Nations.
Spain will continue to support all efforts aimed at achieving a just and lasting peace, grounded in the principles of international law, respect for human rights, and accountability. We also see this in its full severity in the Middle East, in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip. We cannot remain silent or look away from the devastation, the bombings, including of hospitals, schools, and places of refuge. In light of the countless civilian deaths, famine, starvation, the forced displacement of hundreds of thousands of people. To what end? These are abhorrent acts that stand in stark contrast to everything that this forum represents.
In this framework, the President of Kenya, William Ruto, demanded more equity and representation for African nations in the United Nations.
For 2 decades, Africa has spoken in one voice, demanding justice, equity, and representation in the highest organ of global governance. This demand, however, continues to be ignored, deferred, or endlessly debated to the detriment of both Africa and the legitimacy of the United Nations itself. You cannot claim to be the United Nations while disregarding the voice of 54 nations. It is not possible. Africa is no longer willing to wait on the margins of global governance while decisions about peace, security, and development are made without our understanding, without our perspectives, and without our voice.
Speaking from the Consulate of Venezuela in New York, Minister of Foreign Affairs Iván Gil denounced the false narrative that uses the fight against drug trafficking as a justification for the U.S. military deployment in the Caribbean. The minister highlights that the United Nations General Assembly has demonstrated the solidarity of the world with Venezuela's right to peace and sovereignty.
There is a message to the international community that this madness must be stopped, the threats must be stopped, the use of force, or the threat of force against a free and sovereign country must be stopped. And I think that is very clear and already well accepted by the international community, that this cannot happen. CELAC itself condemned it at Monday's CELAC meeting, where all countries unanimously declared the protection of the Latin American peace zone.
In addition, Iván Gil denounced the economic blockade against Cuba and Venezuela's support for the end of this unjust policy.
The struggle of the Cuban people is the struggle of the Venezuelan people. The aggression against Venezuela is precisely an aggression against the Cuban people and the revolutionary government of Cuba. All the peoples of the world have asked almost unanimously, we could say unanimously, for an immediate end to the blockade, an end to the policy of harassment, and for Cuba to be removed from the spurious list of states that allegedly sponsor terrorism. Venezuela has a very clear position in defense of international law, in defense of legality, in defense of the Cuban people, and in defense of their revolution.
Namibian President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah demanded Wednesday at the United Nations General Assembly that unilateral coercive measures should not be used to undermine sovereign states and called to put an end to the U.S. blockade on Cuba.
Unilateral coercive measures should not be used as a tool to undermine sovereign state, for this violates the Charter and the principle of the United Nations. In this regard, we call for an end to the continued illegal economic, financial, and commercial embargo imposed on the friendly people of Cuba and removing her from the list of states sponsoring terrorism.
And to maintain on topic in this highlight of the week, the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly that is underway and with its second day of general debate. And with more on today's addresses, let's go with our correspondent, Jorge Gestoso.
Another historic day here at the United Nations, the second day of the General Assembly. Many big players were taking their stand. For example, in the morning was the president of Iran, who put special emphasis in denouncing the genocide by Israel of the Palestinian people in Gaza, also denying totally, vehemently, that Iran has any intention to develop nuclear weapons. They say that even their religion doesn't let them. Also before that, President Volodymyr Zelensky was speaking, the second in terms of the list of the orators, and he mentioned that he was pleased with the difference of the position that President Trump had regarding the conflict. He said that now President Trump believes that Ukraine could recover the territory that has lost and even gain more. He said, well, remains to be seen. Very much an irony, because also one of the presidents who spoke was the president of Syria. It has been 60 years before Syria was coming back to the United Nations, and the irony is that the person who today is, quote unquote, the president of Iran and walking here in New York City It has been declared by the CIA and FBI as a terrorist member of Al-Qaeda, and today he's walking freely in the city of New York. In the afternoon, there were many presidents of Latin America that we were listening their speech. In the morning was President Milei of Argentina, very aggressive against the United Nations and against, once more, his style of type of speech that he is presenting. So mostly what is coming back by the end of this session is multilateralism, the interest of bringing the recognition of the state of Palestine very present on all the halls of this United Nations building, and the hope that all together the world could afford and fight against violence, terrorism, climate change. We get back to you now.
Thank you, Estoso, for all the information. And now, after this report, we have a short break coming up. Professor, remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, the National Council for Sovereignty and Peace, Miranda chapter, was installed as part of the efforts of the Venezuelan state to strengthen the security and integral defense of the country. From the Chacao Cultural Center, the Secretary of the National Council for Sovereignty and Peace, Jorge Rodriguez, detailed that the installation of the Council for Sovereignty and Peace is being carried out in the 24 states of the country with the objective of consolidating a plural and representative instance that includes all sectors of the Venezuelan society. In this sense, he highlighted that the defense of national sovereignty implies guaranteeing fundamental rights, such as the right to life, to the integrity of the territory, and to tranquility. In turn, Rodriguez condemned the false narratives imposed by the United States against Venezuela, which respond to Washington's interest to seize Venezuela's wealth.
En su valiente discurso lo mencionó en Naciones Unidas el presidente de Colombia,
In his courageous speech, mentioned in the United Nations, the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, where the real drug traffickers live is in the popular sectors of Venezuela or Colombia. They do not live in Miami, in New York, in Madrid, in Paris, in Dubai, where the drug money is, where the drug money that they sell and consume has gone. It is in the financial system of the United States of America, the European continent, and the tax havens in Europe, and the Middle East and America. That is the truth. The truth is that the drug epidemic in the United States of America is an epidemic more related to the excessive consumption of opiates, the so-called fentanyl.
excesivo consumo de opiáceos.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro announced that the four state powers are analyzing a constitutional decree of foreign commotion in response to threats from the Donald Trump administration. This announcement was made during the State Council meeting, where President Maduro also referred to a set of constitutional and legal measures that will enable the Venezuelan state to respond to any act of aggression. Maduro justified these decisions in light of mounting threats and the false narrative surrounding his country, his people, and his government, which is being promoted by the national far right. The figure analyzed by the state's power is provided for in Article 388 of the National Constitution. The Cuban government expressed its unconditional support to the people of Venezuela and rejected the U.S. military threats against that Bolivarian nation. From September 24th till September 30th, signatures will be collected across the nation in support of an official declaration issued by Havana expressing its solidarity with the South American country and calling the world community to join in the efforts to defend Venezuela from the U.S. threats. According to Cuban authorities, the declaration will be available for signature at all working centers and education institutions through the island. We go now to Mexico, where President Claudia Sheinbaum condemned Wednesday the criminalization carried out by the United States authorities against Mexican nationals in that country. During her daily press conference, Sheinbaum rejected the new anti-migration raids conducted by U.S. authorities and highlighted that Mexican migrants contribute to the economic development of the northern neighbor. The Mexican president also stressed that her government has reinforced its consular mechanisms to provide support to all Mexicans receiving orders of deportation. She also warned that Washington's anti-migration policies are also affecting U.S. companies, since an increasing number of migrant employees refuse to go to work for fear of being detained.
Hemos manifestado varias veces que nosotros no estamos de acuerdo con.
We have said several times that we don't agree with criminalizing migrants, especially not those who go to the United States looking for a better life to help their families.
Una mejor vida para poder ayudar a sus familias.
We have showed here several times how Mexicans who live in the United States, whether they are from a first, second, third, or fourth generation,
Segunda, tercera, cuarta generación, contribuyen de manera muy importante.
Contribute in a very important way to the economy of the United States and still continue to support their families and contribute with the economy of Mexico through the remittances they send.
No estamos de acuerdo con esta forma.
We do not agree with this form of treatment nor with the raids that have been carried out, which also, in effect, cause fear and anxiety in the Mexicans who live there. What have we done as a result of this?
¿Qué hemos hecho a partir de esto? Tanto comunicados a partir de notas.
We have communicated by means of diplomatic notes. We have expressed our views when U.S. government officials have come to Mexico to meet our foreign ministry or other public officials.
Cancillería o otros servidores públicos.
Mexican president also called the actions of U.S. authorities against migrants an injustice and affirmed that her government will always stand with them.
Es una injusticia y por supuesto que duele.
It's an injustice, and of course it hurts. That's why we always stand with our compatriots there. That's why there is also a recognition on our part about what they do, because when there is discrimination there has to be also a recognition of what they do, and there's no reason for discrimination. On the contrary, Mexicans are heroes because they leave their communities behind. They put everything at risk to go there to work, to help their families and support the economy of the United States. So they have our support and our solidarity, and they have to know that we embrace them, and will do everything we have to do, both from the presidency and myself, personally. If they want to return to Mexico, there is a special program called Mexico Embraces You, where they are provided with immediate support, access to housing, access to welfare programs, employment, and so that they can return to their homes the best way possible.
In Ecuador, the National Police recorded 6,020 murders, which means 24 homicides per day from January to August 2025. The official statistics are the results of President Daniel Noboa's administration and represent a 42% increase compared to the first 8 months of 2024. Until now, 2023 was classified as the most violent year in the country, but with President Noboa's plans, the figures have skyrocketed in 2025, setting a new record for homicides in Ecuador's recent history. The declaration of internal armed conflict and the increase in value-added tax to 15% did not achieve the results promised by the president and has positioned Ecuador as the most violent country in the region. United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has warned about the high rate of minors' murders due to escalating violence in Haiti. Precisely, the UNICEF report unveiled that violence in the Caribbean nation has claimed the life of a child per day in the last 10 days. In this sense, the United Nations agency expressed its deepest consternation about the assassination of 10 children in the Simon Pelé community located in Cité Soleil, the biggest neighborhood in the capital Port-au-Prince. The incident reportedly took place on September 20th during a birthday party when a drone operated by mercenaries to the service of Blackwater founder Eric Prince, together with the Haitian police, impacted against a residential area. In this context, human rights organizations have denounced the silence of authorities over 72 hours after the incident, demanding the government launches an investigation into the matter. We have a second toll break coming up. Before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In the last 24 hours, the Israeli army killed more than 30 Palestinians during its attacks. Medical sources indicated that 37 bodies, including 4 recovered from under the rubble and 175 injured people, were transferred to hospitals in Gaza during the last 24 hours. They added that this toll remains incomplete as many victims remain trapped under the rubble, inaccessible to ambulances and rescue teams due to the ongoing aggression. The death toll in the Gaza Strip has reached more than 65,400 and at least another 160 people have also been injured since the beginning of the Israeli genocide in October 2023. And Israel maintains a violent siege against the Sumud flotilla. In the last few hours, its crew reported more than 10 drone attacks. In response to the serious risk to the fleet crew, they have requested that the United Nations General Assembly discuss the issue and appoint an escort of observers. In addition to unmanned drone harassment, the flotilla reports unidentified launches, communications interference, and explosions heard from several ships. The crew have asked their governments to demand that Israel respects their lives and physical integrity. They assure that the flotilla will not return until it reaches Gaza. We go to Russia, where Ukrainian drone attacks on tourist areas have been reported, leaving at least 2 people dead and 8 wounded. The local authorities reported that the attack affected several residential buildings and a hotel in the tourist city of Novorossiysk. In this scenario, all services in the area where the attack took place are on high alert. The government described the actions as deliberate terrorist actions against civilian targets, as there are no military installations in the zone where the attack was perpetrated. And with this information, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For teleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.